Here we are, everybody, Wednesday night, right after AEW Dynamite goes off the air, and of course, here we are with Dynamite After Dark. I am your host, Zanman Shane Sabuni, along with my good buddy Jeff, and I gotta tell you, Jeff, I missed the first half hour of this show, and it was still full of things that pissed me off. How are you doing tonight?
I'm just pissed off in general, so this is going to be a great show. I dropped my phone in a snowbank. It was as soon as got to pick up my kid, and I didn't charge it before I left work, so it was dead for half the night while I was trying to dry out the port. And then just all hell's broken loose since then. So,
I was in a good mood, and then I got home from the birthday party I was at, and put on AEW, and the first thing I see is Mel attacking Riho, and Kris Statlander fighting her off, and then Kris Statlander getting attacked by the rest of the Nightmare Collective, and I'm like, really? They're having the women's title match with the best wrestler in the division finally wrestling for the championship, and this is the kind of
filibuster. I'll be right back.
And it was just completely ridiculous to me. I mean, here we are, Kris Statlander finally getting her shot at Riho, and like I said, this Mel chick gets involved, and then we have Awesome Kong get involved, and then Brandy runs down when she's doing commentary at ringside, and we get that chick named some other guy comes down, Luther, I think they said his name was. I guess he's a Japanese guy, or he's famous like for being a Japanese wrestler in some promotion. And he comes down, and he was the shaved like monster guy that she had that one day sitting in the back with Brandy, and he interferes in the match too. And once again, Riho holds on to the women's championship. So here she is, the littlest woman in the division. She keeps pulling out miraculous win after miraculous win. She has beaten now the top 5 contenders for her championship in the last 2 goddamn weeks. And so now, she's beaten, in the last 2 weeks, she's beaten, I should say the top 4 contenders for her championship. She's beaten now Kris Statlander, Dr. Britt Baker, Shida, and Nyla Rose, all in the last 2 weeks. And she keeps winning all these matches, and this is a week after getting put through a table by Nyla Rose. So I mean, it's like it's getting to be a point where it's ridiculous now. Where how we're supposed to believe that somebody at some point can beat this unbeatable 3-pound chick.
Well, I understand why she was made the first champion. She pretty much stole the show in, as far as the women's division goes, in 4 straight of their specials and pay-per-views. So I get why she was named the champion, but you're right. We're now 4 months in. She's still the champ. It's something that probably should have been lost a while ago. Granted, she hasn't really been up against anybody other than Shida that's been worthy. Now, Statlander is, I agree, the best wrestler in the company, and she proved it again tonight. And I'm kind of there with you. I think it's time for her to drop the belt. I really believe that.
Yeah, and now she's beaten every single woman, and she's, like I said, she's beaten every top challenger in the division in both singles matches and multi-man matches. So now what? This Mel chick is going to be the one to beat her, or Brandy Rose is going to be the one to beat her. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And if not, it's probably going to be goddamn Britt Baker, which makes me even more pissed off.
Unfortunately, I think it's going to be Britt, because Britt is solidly in the middle of her heel turn.
Yeah, and that's what we need.
And
is another unproven person at the top of the division.
Right. And well, I mean, let's face it, there's not a whole lot of proven commodities in that division anyway. I mean, outside of Allie.
You and I agreed last week when we talked about this that far and away, Hikaru Shida and Kris Statlander are the best 2 women's wrestlers in the division, and it looks like they're not going to get a sniff at that title.
Oh yeah, I agree. And
they did a great job the last few weeks getting Kris Statlander over too, and then they blow it with this.
Yeah, and now they've got them all teaming together too. So it's just, I don't know. I don't know what to think about it. I think that's a huge misstep. But in all honesty, they don't really have a whole lot of over talent on that roster as far as the women go. I mean, we've got the two best wrestlers, but we know nothing about them. Statlander kind of has a built-in storyline going with Brandy and Nightmare Collective, but outside of that, there's not a whole lot of anything built up on any of these women.
That's true. Statlander was undefeated coming in. She's clearly the class of the division, in my opinion, or she and
I agree.
Or 1-2 in some order, or this might actually be a case where 1 and 1A makes sense.
Wait, what? Wait, no, you don't get away with that. If I can't do it, if you yell at me every time I do it, you can't get away with that 1 and 1A stuff.
Well, I think Statlander is 1 and Sheeta is 2, but I think it could easily be switched around one way or the other, just based on them every match they have. One of them could pull ahead of them, in my opinion. And we haven't, like you said, neither one of them is really established. We haven't seen them a ton. So that's why I'm saying that in this case, I might be willing to concede 1 and 1A.
My only problem with Sheeta, and I think it's Statlander, is the class, and then Sheeta is number 2. And my only reason for saying that is that Sheeta has been in multiple championship matches for the title, and she just does not seem to get over with the crowd. Mustache Girl seems to get over more than Sheeta does.
Right.
Which is really annoying, because outside of people who actually are watching it for the wrestling aspect, she's just not getting over.
I think we need to have more women's matches on the show that are not based around the title.
Right. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really speak to the quality of the match. What I saw was good, but I can't really speak to the overall quality of the match, or obviously the opening match that I really wanted to see, and I can't believe was the opening match on the show. I guess I should be used to that by now, because they seem to open it with a hot match every single week. But I mean, I really wish we had seen that later in the show, so I'd had a chance to watch it.
Yeah, and I mean, it was from what I saw, it was a good match. Granted, I wasn't able to sit down and watch it as closely as I was last week's shows, because, I have a child here this week. But it was... Cat. The cat wasn't a problem tonight. Tonight was me in the snowbank, and then my child, who really desperately wanted to play. Gotcha. And of course, that kind of takes precedence. I can always watch it later. But they're still trying to get over this Page heel turn. But the problem is the way there is not as, I don't know, believable as I'd hoped. He seems to still be on the same page with Kenny. They seem to celebrate and love each other before and after the matches, but we've got the announcers talking it up. I don't know if they're actually going to pull the trigger, or if this is just going to kind of be him as a member of making up with the Elite at some point. I don't know.
Well, there's nothing wrong with it being a slow burn, but but I think what you're saying is that we're hearing more of them telling us what's going on rather than actually showing us what's going on, and that's always a problem.
Well, I mean, even in his guest spot last week, when he was being a guest announcer, he was talking about how he keeps trying to break away from the Elite, but they keep putting him in matches with Kenny. And then he's in this match with Kenny, and there was one spot where Kenny knocked, I can't remember which one of the Private Party, but one of the two into Hangman, and then of course they just kissed and made up after the match. So it just, if it's a slow burn, that's great, but let's show a little more disdain between Hangman and the rest of the Elite. He's not showing any.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's just like, I keep trying to get away with you guys, and you guys won't leave me alone.
Right.
I'm sorry, my microphone had to take some potassium. My foot started cramping up. But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's just they're not. This is such a slow burn that it's not even. It's not making sense, I think, is the biggest problem.
What I would really like to see is them do more with this, like, Hangman team up with the Bucks or and he'd be like, guys, I didn't want to team with you. I'm trying to get away from you guys.
Right.
And instead of just being Kenny all the time. And I know that they're probably doing Kenny because they're setting up for Kenny versus Hangman, but I think it would make a lot of sense if it was him just always like kind of being pulled into these matches and always resisting doing it, and then he finally snaps and it's like, you know what? I kept telling you guys I needed some time alone. I kept telling you guys I didn't want to be part of the Elite. You guys wouldn't leave me alone, so now I'm snapping on all your asses.
Yeah, I mean, and that's about where it's at. But the reality is he's not doing anything on his own either.
Cool. He hasn't had a chance to yet.
It's just been tag match after tag match. The whole reason he wanted to leave the Elite is because he wasn't winning.
Right.
He wasn't getting over the way he thought he should, and he wasn't winning. But here he is in these tag matches every single week, winning. And the crowd is solidly behind him. They chant more about cowboy shit than they do about anything else. So it's whatever his reasoning for wanting to leave the Elite just doesn't hold any water, because his two reasons are not, they're just false.
Yeah, it's not just cowboy shit, it's cowboy shit reasoning.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I mean there you go. Our first two matches of the night, and the first one is a heel turn angle that's just not making any sense because his whole reasons for turning heel aren't there, and the best wrestler in the division getting punked out of a world title win by Nightmare Collective interfering in something that really didn't make much sense either. I mean, unless the whole reason why Kong cost Statlander the win there was to set up Kong taking the championship, okay, I get it. But that's the only thing that makes sense out of that whole disaster.
No. What another thing that makes sense is going back to weeks and weeks when we talked about MJF versus turning on Cody, is if she's just an asshole and she's costing Kris Statlander the championship because she doesn't like her. Is another reason. Except
for the fact that she's pointed down Riho after the match. That's the only thing that was leading me to believe that's what they were setting up, was Awesome Kong versus Riho.
Ah, okay. And Awesome Kong can barely wrestle anymore, so as much as I was excited to see her in the division, knowing that she's limited by injury and she can barely do anything in the ring anymore, I really do not want to see her holding that championship, at least not for very long.
No, and we kind of said the same thing about Riho when she won it. It was the right decision at the time to put it on her, but it had to be a short title reign. Yeah. And now we're pushing almost 5 months now.
Yeah, now we're at a quarter of it, or a third of a year, and it's been way too long. Before we stray too far from a segue I wanted to make, I also wanted to say that we talked about how they're telling more than showing about what's going on with Hangman Page,
right?
And they did exactly the same thing with the Diamond Dallas Page segment later on, where they get in the ring, as they get in the ring, one of the announcers, I think it was Excalibur, says, Blade and the Butcher, two of the toughest guys to form a tag team we've seen in a long time.
And then got punked by the 63-year-old.
10 seconds later, they both get punked with diamond cutters in the middle of the ring by a 50-some-year-old guy.
60-some-year-old guy. He's 63.
I mean, what the fuck was that shit?
I said that.
So tough that a 63-year-old guy who hasn't wrestled in 20 years can kick their asses in the span of seconds.
Well, and I said that about Wardlow when he got diamond cuttered by Page after the Battle Bowl, or after that battle ring was won.
I know, but to me this is almost twice as bad because Wardlow's bigger than these guys, but this is two guys getting taken out that quickly.
Well, and I'm starting to wonder if Wardlow's injured because he's avoiding any kind of contact or anything. He was starting to get, as soon as he had a chance to hit Page, he kind of backed up, and then MJF got in between them, and then of course everything happened with No, I'm thinking about a different segment, but then Dustin comes out, CT comes out, and they just Wardlow, who's the biggest guy in the ring, and who's supposed to be ridiculously scary, just kind of climbs out and walks away.
Yeah,
even Hagar, they didn't hold back that much. So I'm starting to wonder if he might be injured and was just introduced a little too early.
Well, if he's just gonna be a bodyguard figure for a while, then he was introduced too early. I mean, it's kind of like Diesel was originally with Shawn Michaels. You know, he didn't really get physically involved for quite a while. But I mean, and so if it's trying to kind of go that same route, I totally understand it. Where, so you know, sometimes it's like, in a sense, it's almost like when you're watching a horror movie. You know, the best horror movies, they don't show the monster in full until like near the very end of the movie. So,
right.
So we're seeing this world, though we're seeing he's big and huge, but we really don't have any idea what his capabilities are until he finally strikes.
Well, but the thing is he's got nothing. He doesn't even, like, this whole thing with DDP. DDP just falls over. He goes, "Oh, Wardlow," and fell over. He hasn't had a stare down with anybody. He hasn't had anything that makes him look intimidating. It's just
that one punch to the face of Hangman Page. That's it.
Yeah, that's literally the only thing he's done. So it's kind of it's starting to make me wonder where this end game is going, and if it's because he's injured. But again, like you had mentioned it, I mean, this is 3 guys that are being pushed as big badasses who have been punked by DDP, a 63-year-old guy. It's not looking very well. I was going to bring that up too. I'm glad you did. I was going to say, what is it about DDP's contract that makes him untouchable?
And then you know, he made that announcement like earlier before, you know, right before that happened, where he said that first of all, I love that when he was talking to MJF was just on his phone, because that's exactly the same thing he was doing when DDP was talking.
When he was texting. Yeah, I thought that was brilliant.
But then, you know, DDP says, everybody's been asking me, when are you going to get in the ring for one more match? And I'm like, nobody in their right mind is asking you that, Paige.
And nobody wants to see it. You come in, you do your diamond cutter spot, and leave.
Yeah.
At this point, and it's not. I mean, it's not because I have a legend spot. I do have a legend spot for DDP, but
absolutely,
let's face it. He's 63 years old. The last thing I want to see him do is get in the ring and be a 63-year-old wrestler. I don't want him looking like the Midnight or Rock and Roll Express does.
No, I do not want him to. And he's been retired for so many years. I mean, I love the fact that he's there. I love that he's a mentor to Cody and part of the Nightmare family. But I don't need him to be an active professional wrestler. And I don't care if it's a one-off, if it's a every quarter thing. I don't want him in there. There's no reason for it.
Well, luckily
you just know that the way this match is set up, he's going to be the guy that gets the diamond cutter and gets that feel good win for you know, idiots when he in that 6-man tag next week.
I mean, Dustin's not that far behind him age-wise. I think Dustin's he's in his mid-50s, isn't he?
But Dustin can still go, and he's been able to go for years.
And he's also been an active wrestler. It's not like he walked away and was in retirement and then just came back for a one-off and stayed. He has been an active wrestler for quite a while.
Right.
You know, and he's still in shape. He can still perform, and he's been able to change his gimmick, whatever he does, a lot like Jericho does, to adapt to today's style of wrestling. Where I don't see Diamond Dallas Page was never that great technician, or never that really great storyteller. He had an insane connection to the crowd, and he was able to hit high spots and tell a decent enough story in the ring to carry the match. But he was never that Dustin Rhodes, Chris Jericho type of storyteller. So plus,
let's face it. You know, we talked the other day on Kingdom of Honor about guys that started late in their careers and got over late in their careers. You know, DDP was like 35 when he first broke into the wrestling business.
Well, he was 28, but they typecast him as a manager. He didn't actually get in the ring until he was 35.
That's what I mean. When he actually became a wrestler, he was like 35 years old.
Yeah, and then it still took him, it took him till his former talent came back, and he turned on them to really get over with the crowd. And once he turned on NWO, there was no stopping him. And he had, a good 2 to 3 years there where he was probably the most popular guy in the business next to Stone Cold.
Right. Whereas that's where the difference is between him and Dustin Rhodes. Though, like, Dustin's been wrestling since he was like 18 years old.
And
he's been in incredible shape most of that time, and he's got the experience of how to do it, and he's gotten better over time. I mean, DDP, I mean, Dustin Rhodes is better today than he was in '95.
Well, yeah.
DDP
all
DDP can do is duck out of things and do diamond cutters.
And that's pretty much all DDP ever could do. I mean, that's what got him over so good. He was the working man's champion. He was the people's champion, but he was also... I'm trying to remember the last time he put on a classic. Was it 98 against Savage?
Yes.
He did have a couple of decent matches against Hogan when he was going for the title, but I think the last really great match he had was against Randy Savage at Halloween Havoc.
Actually, it was Halloween Havoc, but it was against Goldberg in the match that ended the show where it got cut off, and there was that huge controversy. Yeah,
that's right. The match that nobody ever actually saw until it came out on video.
Well, I saw it. I mean, when I was watching it, the cable system did cut off, but it came right back on. But I know a lot of people didn't, and then they aired it the next night on Nitro, and cable companies had to give back a lot of money because people were complaining, and it was just a whole big mess.
And that was actually a really good match he had against Goldberg. So yeah, you're right. He did. I mean, he did it when he got the championship in WCW. He earned it. It wasn't something that was just given to him as you've been popular for so long, let's just give it to you. He actually earned it.
Right.
Because he had that. I mean, he was probably the most popular guy in the company there for a long, long time, and that was when Goldberg was at his peak. DDP arguably was still the most over guy in that company, and he did have a string of, a good 2 to 3 year string of putting on quality matches, but I would never have called him a technical wizard. A lot of them were his jobber matches where he'd come in, give a diamond cutter, and leave.
This is the first time that I looked at this and that I looked at anything with AEW and said, okay, so this is definitely a result of nepotism.
Yep. Yeah. And now we get to see him in his one-off next week. Whatever. It is what it is. Hopefully it is a one-off and he goes back into the sunset. But I don't know. This is really the first Dynamite episode that I've been fully disappointed in. And not because that opening match was good. The 6-man tag match was fun. The Dustin and Cody versus his Lucha Brothers was fun. But nothing really impressed me. I guess Sammy did again, but that match itself was a little less than what I've expected out of Sammy lately. And the whole thing at the end with the Dark Order coming out and
and getting
Pentagon
kicked by
again
by an ad hoc team. Yeah, that was just fantastic.
Well, they also had the Young Bucks out there too. So
right, but I mean, it's the Young Bucks team, with Christopher Daniels and, well, I guess with SCU. But I mean, it's still basically, these guys are rivals and they're teaming up and being able to fight off who's supposed to be like a cohesive stable.
Cohesive? Have they done anything that would make you even slightly think they're cohesive? They get their asses beat every week.
They do, but my point is that they're a stable together. They should be cohesive, and yet they're getting their asses kicked by the Bucks and Team Overrated.
I mean, I like the fact that they are kind of running with the NJPW theme of having everybody's got to be in a stable type thing, and they build their shows a lot similar to the way NJPW does, but these stables have to actually do something and matter to really be, to make it feel like the elite has it, or the elite and inner circle really has any competition. I mean, Dark Order, for everything they've done to try and get Dark Order over, and I mean, they had a misstep from the beginning by having these guys debut with nobody knowing who they were. Mm-hmm. And then they fought up from that. They got into this tournament. They actually put on decent performance in the tournament, but then got punked out by Best Friends, and really never amounted to anything after that.
No, and then they looked like they were building them back up, but now they're getting their asses kicked every week again.
Yeah, I mean, right now the only thing that they're using to build them up are these little sideshow gimmicks and commercials, infomercials or whatever, but it's not paying off because as soon as they get in the ring, they get their asses kicked.
No, and it might take somebody big to actually accept that offer of the mask for that to happen, and Daniel's doing it would have been cool. But
well, Daniel's doing it probably would have been the thing that could have finally gotten them over and gotten them into a different area, because if somebody, like you said, somebody big, somebody like Daniels puts that mask on, they're not losing. You're not going to put the mask on Christopher Daniels and turn him against his brothers after this many years, and especially Frankie Kazarian, without having that stable go on a run.
Right. And, about Christopher Daniels, during his match with Sammy, JR said Christopher Daniels has been an overachiever throughout his entire career. Has he watched the same Christopher Daniels career that I watched? Because what I saw Christopher Daniels do is be an incredibly talented performer who for years and years and goddamn years was used to put everybody else over. And then it wasn't until he is like 25 years in the business he finally got his chance to run on top of a promotion. So I have no idea what the hell JR was talking about.
Well, keep in mind, JR also did call it AEWE too, so I'm not putting much faith. You didn't hear him call it AEWE?
I did not.
Yeah, he did. That was when Excalibur goes, yes, everybody's in awe. To cover up for it, but I don't know. I overall didn't watch it as closely and intently as I hoped I would because I had so many other things going on. But I was very disappointed in this week's episode. Very, very disappointed.
Yeah, and a couple more things that I just want to touch on that disappointed me because I started the show by saying it was full of things that pissed me off. You mentioned that we got to see the Lucha Brothers against the Brotherhood, which is awesome, except for you have those two teams facing each other, including the most exciting professional wrestler on the planet who's not named Will Ospreay or Hiromu Takahashi, and you go to commercial when he's doing his stuff.
Yep.
And then you come back, and they're in control, which you really couldn't see much on the little tiny screen as far as what Ray was actually doing.
And you didn't get the feel from the crowd. You didn't get the excitement from the announcers because it was all being overrun by the commercial.
Right. I mean, this should have been a match that you saved for one of your big events, or at least you open the show with it so that you're not going to commercial during it. But
right.
But instead, you go to commercial during that match, and as disappointed as I was with the show already, seeing that just kind of made me go, kind of throw my hands up in the air, like, okay, you know what, I'm kind of done with this week now.
Well, and then MJF, them joining his interview already in progress. His promo was literally already in progress when they joined it.
That's the other thing. I was going to mention that too. The second week in a row, we see MJF out there jawing with the crowd, getting them all riled up, but we don't get to hear a single second of it.
You've got the best talker in your company, and I don't think it's arguably. Jericho is a great talker, but I think right now MJF is probably the best in the company.
Yeah.
And we get his promos constantly joined in progress, so we don't get to hear him do what makes him the best talker in the company, and that's his crowd work.
Right. I mean, we had to see him out there doing it, but do we get to hear it?
No.
Nope.
And literally, that's what makes MJF so great on the mic is his crowd work.
Yep.
That's the one thing he's always excelled at. So I don't know. You start off with this. Really, I don't even know if I want to call it a slow burn, just nonsensical heel turn by Adam Page. That's what we start off with. We have the misstep with the women's division or with the women's title match, and then we had the MJF joined in Progress, and then we get Orange Cassidy out there against Marco Stunt, which was, I guess, the Orange Cassidy stuff is fun for a while, but he was in the ring way too much for it to continue to be fun.
The other thing that we skipped over a little bit, just talking about we talked about that tag match that they went to commercial during, that kind of pissed us both off, is we also had the 50-some-year-old Dustin Rhodes pin Rey Fenix in that one. Yeah,
that was a little bit much too.
And to me, that match should have either opened the show or been the main event. I really don't. I enjoyed the Moxley Jericho segment for what it was, but I thought it went on too long, first of all, and it wouldn't have had to if they hadn't decided to have that be the main event of the show. It probably could have been like 3 or 4 minutes shorter than it actually was, because it did start to drag a little bit with him doing the stuff in the ring. But secondly, I really don't like when shows end in that kind of a segment. It felt very WWE to me, honestly.
I've never been a fan of the whole promo to end a show either, and I get it. This was a big, but very few people actually thought Moxley was going to join them.
Nobody did.
So,
Wait,
and then
kidding.
What?
That's what he said. Just kidding.
Oh yeah, and then that. You're right. That segment with them just shaking bottles and shaking hands and all this stuff just went on way, way too long. That was a good 12-minute segment that should have been about a 3-minute segment.
Yeah, I mean,
he
8 at the most, but yeah, I mean, it should have taken place, probably between taken place between that 6-man tag and then having the main event be the Lucha Brothers against the Brotherhood.
Can't hear you. He's over here.
But instead, we get to end it with Moxley posing in the crowd and all that kind of stuff that doesn't need to end a show.
I will say that the one bright spot that I thought was during that the first commercial break after the opening match, watching Page celebrate in the crowd, walking around grabbing people's drinks and taking a swig of it, and I thought that was kind of a fun little touch.
Well, I didn't see that, so but
yeah, I mean, that was
cool from what you're saying, from what you're describing it though.
Because
especially after last week, it kind of goes along with the theme of last week when he took that whiskey out of the private party bar.
Yeah, what happened is he after the match, him and Kenny made up and did their little, I love you too, all that stuff, and then they cut to a scene where Pac has whatever his finisher is, his submission finisher on Michael Nakazawa, and then
couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
Right, exactly. And then you cut back to the ring, and Page is just screaming at Kenny to go save your friend, and then he climbs out and casually walks into the crowd and starts drinking beers with everyone in the crowd. It was kind of fun. It was fun to see. But there too, that completely takes away from his supposed heel turn. If he's gonna turn heel on Kenny Omega at some point in the Elite, don't have him out there celebrating with the crowd, because now he's becoming more and more of a sympathetic character.
Except for what have you and I said over and over in the last couple of years when we've been doing these shows?
We don't really want heels and faces. We just want people to be people.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, nobody's successfully been able to do that since CM Punk.
Really? Naito?
Not in American television.
Okay. In America.
Not in America. In Japan, pretty much everybody's like that. I mean, you saw that in the Okada-Naito match. Okada played the heel perfectly. And he's one of the
times that Sammy's pulled it off. But I guess it depends on what you mean by America. And how mainstream you consider like Impact or Ring of Honor, because I think those places have pulled it off too.
Well, I don't know about anybody. I can't think of anybody off the top. Well, I guess Marty Scurll pulls it off pretty good too.
Yeah, Marty does. I think Cody did for a while.
Sammy definitely does.
Yeah, Sammy does.
But Sammy also
Adam
does.
Cole did.
Yeah, Adam Cole kind of still does. In fact, all of Undisputed Era does.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess there are still some people that are leaning towards it, but it would be nice to see a lot more of. I'd rather see people just be people and not have people being assholes just to be assholes.
You know, the other person that I would mention, and you know, we could talk about this another time also, but is Matt Riddle a babyface?
I don't know what the hell Matt Riddle is. I think he's just a guy.
Yeah,
I think
I feel too. I feel like he does what he feels is right, but not necessarily plays to the crowd. You know, he'll take a vicious tactic if it's gonna win him the match.
Well, yeah. I mean, what he does is he plays to the crowd during his intro. You know, and then as soon as those slippers get kicked off, flip flops or whatever, then all of a sudden he's a completely different. He's the MMA badass.
Yeah, he's Mr. Intensity for sure.
Right. Which is what got him over, you know, his match against Drew Gulak, the one that I saw that I was like, okay, this guy's something special. You need to keep an eye on him. And then you started watching him more, and we both realized just how great he is. But yeah, I think he's another one too. That once those flip flops come off, he's no longer the playing to the crowd guy.
Yeah, and other guys in NXT that I think are fit that mold to one extent or another would be Velveteen Dream, and then also definitely Tommaso Ciampa.
Oh, Ciampa now. Yeah, Ciampa was a dirtbag heel there for a long time, but after he came back and he kept his heel persona, and he's kind of just be right. And it was the same thing with AJ Styles. I mean, you and I talked about this on one of the older shows we did, but how when he came back, or after Shane screwed him out of the title, you know, he got screwed out of it by having Cena win it, and then he never got his one-on-one match against Cena, and then Bray Wyatt wins it at the Elimination Chamber, and then he gets the title match because Randy Orton gives it up, so he wins a tournament and gets the title match, and then Randy Orton comes back and he just gets it back again, and then he went on a run for a good 6 to 8 months where he kept his heel gimmick, but the fans were cheering him.
Yeah.
So he really became that sympathetic heel character, kind of like what Ciampa is right now, where he's a badass. He's going to do whatever the hell he wants to do, but the fans are still going to cheer him.
Yeah, and I think that's where, you know, I think that's where Hangman Page could be with AEW, and honestly, I think that's where Pac is with AEW right now too. And
yeah, I feel
Lucha Brothers.
I still feel bad that I excluded Pac from my Wrestlers of the Year talk. I do. You know, he's so talented. You
know, I listened to the Super J cast yesterday, and I was listening to their year-end awards. And do you know that my guy Sonata, your guy Sonata, our guy Sonata was not in the top 5 for either Most Improved, Wrestler of the Year, or Overlooked Wrestler of the Year?
I think that it doesn't surprise me about Wrestler of the Year because there's so many guys that, as much as we love this guy, there's so many people that had better years than him and put on better matches. But there's no way that he shouldn't have been in the Most Improved or the Most Overlooked.
Yeah, definitely. I was shocked.
I would put him maybe as the Most Improved Wrestler of the Year. Maybe when you look at, I mean, he did have some momentum though last year, where you could look at a guy like El Phantasmo, who really at the beginning of the year was nothing. And then he had that ridiculous ladder match against David Starr, joined the Bullet Club, and went on a run. So I would argue that maybe El Phantasmo might have been the Most Improved of the year. Darby Allin is certainly looking that way for next year.
Well, this was for NJPW exclusively. So to me, El Phantasmo should have been like in a Rookie of the Year type thing, because he had never wrestled in NJPW before, like, what, March of last year?
Oh, this was NJPW only?
Yeah.
And he wasn't in those?
Yeah. Okay,
now I'm never going to listen to that show ever, because I can't agree with them. Sorry, guys, I can't agree with anybody that would exclude. I was thinking this was like, all promotions lumped together, and WWE and AEW and everybody's kind of lumped in with it.
Right.
knowing that it was NJPW only, I can't get behind anybody that says that he wasn't deserving of at least those two, most improved and most overlooked, and definitely a top 10 spot in the Wrestlers of the Year.
Yeah, and this was like, this wasn't just them though. This was like their, over 400 listeners voting for them in their whole.
God, that's embarrassing.
But I will tell you this also, because this will make you feel better. Jay White was number 2 in Wrestler of the Year voting.
Yeah, probably right behind Okada.
Was it? Let me think. It was. No, Okada was number 3, I think. No.
Who was number 1 then?
I'm trying to remember who number 1 was. It was obviously it was Ospreay.
Well, yeah, because I was just a top 4 there would be Ospreay number 1. I would say White number 2, Okada number 3, and Naito number 4.
No, it wasn't though. Okada was lower down. I think Okada was lower down. I think he was like 4th.
And then maybe Kota at number 5. So I can see why Sonata didn't make it into that group.
Yeah, Tanahashi, Naito didn't get very many votes, but they were like in the top 7.
That's ridiculous. Naito should have been top 3 or 4.
I can't think who number 3 was, but I don't think it was Okada. It might have been Okada, but I thought Okada was 4th.
I mean, I get that Naito had a kind of rough year as he went through it, but the reality is he had a winning win-loss record. He held the Intercontinental title 3 times throughout the year. Mm-hmm. He started the year by beating Jericho at Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah, definitely. I mean the most. I mean, it sure seems like it had to be Okada, but based on the names that we're thinking of right now, but I don't think Okada was in the top 3. It definitely was Ospreay number 1 and White number 2, though, which I thought was awesome.
Yeah, and rightfully so. And then, like I said, Okada, Naito would probably be 3, 4. It would depend on my mood as to which one would be 3 and which would be 4. And then I would say probably Kota Ibushi. And then you start looking at some of the juniors, like maybe Ishimori would have been in there, would have been in the top 10. ZSJ obviously would have been in the top 10, even though he didn't have quite the year he had in years past. Shingo Takagi would have been in that top 10.
That's number 3 was with Shingo.
I don't think Shingo was number 3.
That's what the vote was, though. It was Ospreay 1, White 2, Shingo 3, Okada 4.
Oh, that's almost embarrassing.
Well, if you think about it, though, Shingo and Ospreay had the advantage of being in both major tournaments of the year.
They did, but Shingo...
So that's a huge body of singles work compared to Okada's, like, maybe 8 to 10 matches.
I thought Okada had, like, 14 matches.
Okay, but that's still, even if he had 14, that's still 14 matches throughout the year, whereas Shingo and Ospreay probably had 20 matches just in those 2 tournaments themselves.
Yeah, that's true.
Plus Shingo had the run as a junior, as part of the junior tag team champs too, didn't he? With Bushi.
I thought it was. I didn't think they had the junior tag champs. I thought they were part of the 6-man, weren't they?
That's probably that might be true.
Or maybe they did have. I'm trying to think who the junior heavyweight champs were. I think you might be right. I think it might have been Shingo and Bushi.
Yeah, because I think they did have them at one point during the year. But I mean, the year closed with Phantasmo and Ishimori having them. But I think at some point Shingo and Bushi had them as well. And
I think, well, yeah, because they beat Desperado and Kaminoro for it,
right,
for the titles.
Yeah, and the match of the year was Ospreay versus Shingo.
That's tough to disagree with.
It is.
The only other one I maybe would have put up there would have been White versus Okada from Wrestle Kingdom.
I think White versus Okada was... No, I'm sorry. Wait. Shingo versus Ospreay was number 1. Tanahashi versus Omega was number 2. And then I think number 3 was the G1 Climax Finals between Ibushi and White. Yeah,
and you don't... The Dragon Lee Ospreay match isn't there, which was a match of the year contender as well.
Dragon Lee and Ospreay, when did they face each other?
That's who Ospreay won the title from. He beat Shingo to win the Super Juniors, and then
he did Dragon League at Dominion. That's right. Yeah, that was a fantastic match. Yeah.
And that's not even counting some of the tag matches that were out there. I still think the Birds of Prey versus Bullet Club match was one of the best matches of the year in NJPW too. White versus Naito was probably my favorite match of the year.
Speaking of tag matches, I just kind of want to get your reaction on the air to this. So I had told you there was a surprising tag title match that was formed at New Year's Dash. You haven't seen New Year's Dash yet, right?
Not yet, no.
All right, so you don't care about spoilers. So here's
Never.
The tag team title match. Juice and Finlay, so Finn Juice, defending against Kota Ibushi and Hiroshi Tanahashi.
I'm not mad at that.
No, that's pretty awesome. It kind of makes you just want to chuckle inside it, just thinking of the possibilities of those two guys being a permanent tag team.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of want to see them as a permanent tag team. That would be fun.
Yeah.
Tanahashi, huh?
Tanahashi and Ibushi. Yeah.
Wow. Well, it's about time they do something with Tanahashi.
Yeah.
Because they haven't done enough with him over the course of the last, decade.
Right.
With the guy.
And we've talked about, about the heavy title division being so poor, but if you put those two together, and we just saw on that same show, we had the team I've been begging for years, Goto and Ishii teaming together.
Weren't they a tag team for a while?
Never a regular tag team. Ishii and Yano were a tag team. Actually, the more I think about this, the more that's a perfect spot for Tanahashi. He's kind of fading out of the main event and even the Intercontinental title picture, but he still is such a draw that keeping him around and active in a tag team might be a good way to give him his swan song. And plus, Ibushi just lost back-to-back matches at Wrestle Kingdom, back-to-back nights. So it's a good spot for him to kind of build his credibility back up too. And
who else are you going to build him back up with than with Ace of the promotion?
Right.
And I mean,
Tanahashi. I realize we kind of strayed from our purpose of the show tonight, but I mean, I just thought that was interesting since we were talking about. I don't know exactly how we were talking about guys that were tweeners, I guess. That's how we got into
it. And you know what, guys, it's all right that we strayed this time from the show because we pretty much covered everything that we really could.
We did. Yep.
There really wasn't much more to go through in this. It was a subpar show. It was, there's still some decent moments in it. Like obviously that opening match was pretty good, and even though the two promos drug on a little bit longer than they probably should have, there was still some goodness there. So
yeah, and Jeff and I also we even talked today a little bit how pumped we are to be covering NJPW again, and now they've got the new, we just had Wrestle Kingdom and New Year's Dash, then we got all the new beginning shows coming up, including the U.S. shows plus the two big Japanese shows. So yeah, we're really psyched.
I thought Will Ospreay was older than 26.
Nope.
Huh.
He's not even in his prime yet, dude. Is that scary or what?
Yes, it's incredibly scary.
Three of the top 5 professional wrestlers on the planet are not yet in their primes.
Well, Ospreay's Jay White's 27.
Jay White and Kazuchika Okada.
Okada's 32, I think.
Yeah, but do you really think he's actually hit his prime yet? I don't.
Oh God, no. No, I mean, people usually hit. That's why we say that if you're not a star by the time you're 35, you're probably not going to get there, because most wrestlers hit their prime when they're 35, and if they're hitting their prime when they're a star, they're probably going to stay where they're at.
Yeah, and Okada's already a mega star. And he's still got 3 years to go before he hits that.
It's tough, hard pressed to say that there's anybody better on a night in, night out, match by match basis than Okada anywhere in the world.
And you could have said that for the last 5 years.
Well, and that's what we were saying.
Because I think Shinsuke was right before he left NJPW.
Well, and Omega had a run there where he was, and I felt like Gargano had a run where he might have been there, no. But then there's nobody that's been consistently the greatest on the planet than Okada.
Exactly. And
which is why.
And you also look at guys like ZSJ is not in his prime yet. Sonata's just heading into his prime, in my opinion. It's just crazy the level of talent in that promotion right now that is not even at their prime, but yet they're at or near the top of the promotion.
Yeah, Sonata's 31.
Yep, 30.
So, he hasn't.
That's right, he is.
He hasn't hit his prime yet.
And Evil's 29, I think.
Is Evil that young? I'll look him up after.
He's either 29 or 30. I think he's right around the same age as Sonata, but a little bit younger.
Holy crap! I didn't realize Ibushi was 37.
Yeah.
It's a little older than I thought he'd be. Evil is 32.
Oh, okay. So I thought it was the other way around. So he's a year older than Sonata, but still not quite in his prime either.
No. Yeah, there's a lot of talent.
It's crazy there.
A lot of talent there.
Oh, and since we're on this, and we already agreed that we're talking about NJPW for now. We talked about the Never title the other day. So I was thinking about this, like guys that are under 35 that are not yet at the top of the promotion that could be wrestling for that championship and make it back to what it should be, like the young guys fighting for it. Shingo, David Finlay, Juice. Then you got Evil, and you've got Sonata. That's just 5 guys right there that could cover the course of 2 years of title defenses.
ZSJ is 32.
And ZSJ,
I didn't realize he was.
That's right.
Shingo is 37, so he's not a young guy anymore.
Well, I guess he feels young because he's not been in NJPW very long. But
well, yeah, he ruled over Noah though for almost 2 decades.
And then when you have guys that are moving up from the junior division, you're going to have Sho, you're going to have Yo, you have Phantasmo, and you have Will Ospreay.
I think Sho and guys like ZSJ and people like that fighting over the Never title would actually be great.
Yeah, and then that that makes it a stepping stone to the higher titles, whereas what it's been for the last 7 years has been older guys just treating it as a brawling championship, except for when Ospreay, Ibushi, and Cobb held it.
You talk about a guy that's never really going to make it because he's past his prime, but they keep pushing him occasionally. Taichi. He's 39.
Yeah, he is, but you know what? He's getting better.
He is, and when he won his second Never, I remember saying that to you, when he won the second Never title, I'm like, you know what, Taichi's actually starting to put this shit together, and you're like, no, he still sucks. And now you're kind of seeing it too. He's improved so much over the last 2 years that it's almost not like you're not even watching the same guy anymore.
Yeah, but and I agree that I said that, but remember how great he was against Naito in that match, like towards the end of last year? Yeah,
I do. Holy crap! Everybody in LIJ is old. Naito's 37. Bushi is 36.
What's Hiromu, 24?
I'm looking him up now. This is what happens when we start talking wrestling, guys. It goes everywhere. He's 30. Jesus, he's 30.
I didn't know that.
There's nobody in LIJ that's under 30 years old.
But if you reset the Never title to what it's supposed to be, which is like the younger guys fighting for it, let's say guys under 35, then you come back and next year I would say next year when Shota Umino comes back, it's a perfect spot for him to come in there and take the organization by storm by winning that championship from somebody important like ZSJ or Osprey or somebody like that. You know what I mean?
Did you hear he cut his hair? He got his head shaved.
Shota?
Yeah, he lost a match in CMLL and they shaved his head.
Shota Umino.
Yep.
No, that was the other guy. That was Kawato.
I thought it was Umino.
No, that was Kawato. Umino's wrestling for Rev Pro, not for CMLL.
Oh, okay. Whoever the guy was that went to CMLL got his head shaved. Okay, all right.
Yeah, and I was on the same call when Imp told us both that.
Oh, my last few days runs. Well, every day runs together. I guess it wasn't just the last few days. All right. Well, I got nothing left on what we were supposed to be talking about. So.
No, as far as this episode's Dynamite goes, I hope next week's is good.
Well, next week we kick off the Bash at the Beach. So. We got to run
next
up.
Week we get to bitch about WWE Page being in the ring. Hopefully, it's not for very long and it's really quick.
And hopefully he hits his cutter, but somebody kicks him in the face and he rolls out, and somebody else comes in and gets the pin.
Good call. Anyway, that's all we've got for tonight. Make sure you stay tuned to all the other LOP radio shows. Oh, Jeff, tell everybody where they can listen to us at.
And we got our
tonight.
Well, our Patreon, patreon.com/Kingdom of Honor. We do a lot of exclusive stuff, and we're actually going to do a show after we're done with this. Our next in line of Jessica Jones will be talking about episode 9, and that will be up on our Patreon page, as well as this show and many others, because our entire archive is up there, and we do a bunch of exclusive shows just for Patreon and Patreon subscribers. So if you feel like you want to maybe donate a little bit to our cause here and get some exclusive programming, head over to patreon.com/Kingdom of Honor. You can get all of it there. Twitter, you can find me at Regi Co-op. You can find him at ZanmanLOP. Use hashtag KOH, hashtag DAD. Everything I put up there is tagged with that, so it's easier to find us. And you can follow us for all kinds of wrestling goodness. And then, of course, YouTube, something that we're trying to get our YouTube channel up and going. It's youtube.com/Kingdom of Honor. And starting this weekend, we recorded our review on the latest Star Wars movie, The Rise of Skywalker. And that is going to be an exclusive to YouTube show. So I'll let you guys know when that one's up and running, and you can head over to YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, get us to enough views that we can actually start doing things on a more frequent basis over there. So.
And as a programming note, next week I'm going to be out of town, and it sounds like I'm going to have a dinner during the same time that we normally would do our show. So probably next week on no Kingdom of Honor, unless we do it like later in the day or the next night or something. So we'll keep it. Jeff will keep you posted on Twitter, because I don't do that social media stuff very often. But my guess is that we probably won't be a show next week. We'll probably just take a break for a week. But then we come back strong, talking about New Year's Dash, talking about possibly even Hard to Kill. What are you gonna say, Jeff?
Are we doing a Dynamite After Dark next week, or are you gonna be busy then too?
Dynamite After Dark should be good to go, but I know
Okay.
Monday night I have a meeting scheduled with the vice president of our division. So.
Oh yeah, so that's not going to be a good thing. I wonder how old the cat is. If Takahashi's 30, I wonder how old the cat is.
You just got it a few months ago.
No.
Daryl?
Gary. Yeah.
No idea. That's a weird thing to say.
Well, I mean, I miss the cat. I was so disappointed the cat didn't come out with him on last Saturday and Friday.
Wow, you're becoming the crazy cat man. Right after you broke up with the crazy cat lady, it's kind of crazy. You laughed because it hurt you. Anyway, stay tuned tomorrow to Imp's LOP Radio Adventure. On Friday, The Right Side of the Pond. And then next Wednesday will be Sports Entertainment is Dead, plus Dynamite After Dark. I'm almost positive. That's all we've got. We'll try to do better next time. This is Shane saying long days, pleasant nights. And Jeff saying...
Goodbye.
G1 Climax 27. Goodbye. and good night.